Hello everyone and welcome to Hannafin's first Excel webinar series. We host weekly webinars, but this is the first time that we've done a series like this, and we're really looking forward to hearing whether or not you guys enjoyed it today. So the very first subject, first session we're going to do is with Rachael Law, and it's Fix These 5 Common Excel Issues to Achieve Pro Status. My name is Jamie Newton, and I am the Communications Manager here at Hannafin, and I will be your moderator today. So as I said, your presenter is going to be Rachael Law. Rachael is a Senior Account Analyst here at Hannafin. She is a PPC Hero blogger, and she also hosted an Excel workshop at HeroConf in Philadelphia this past April. So welcome, Rachael.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm so happy to be here with you all.
We're excited to have you. If you want to tweet at Rachael, you can at law_Rachael. If you want to join today's conversation, you can include the hashtag ThinkPPC in your Twitter tweets, or use the webinar question box right there on your control panel to send us questions. We will have a quick live Q&A at the end of the session, so as soon as you think of your question, go ahead and put it in there, and we will answer as many questions as possible before we are out of time. So just before we get started, we have a few housekeeping items. Who is Hannafin Marketing? We run the world's most popular PPC blog and conference, blog PPC Hero, conference HeroConf. As an agency, we manage and optimize clients' paid search, paid social, and display programs. It's our core objective to make everybody better at PPC, ourselves, our clients, our peers, which is why we do weekly webinars, we post on PPC Hero, and we release white papers frequently. So that's just a little bit more about us. For the clients that we work with, here's just a snapshot. We work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, big brands. You'll see Weather Channel, Iceland Air, Shoe Carnival highlights. So a lot of great people that we work with. You'll notice in the handout section right there on your control panel that we have some resources for you. Make sure you check that out. You can download those directly from the control panel. It's a white paper on 34 Excel tricks written by our own Rachael Law, the ultimate guide to Excel for PPC, and using Excel Solver for budgeting. All right, we have a quick poll question before we get started. So we want to know, how long have you been in PPC? Less than a year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or 5+ years. So if you'll take a moment and go ahead and fill that out, we'll be excited to see who's in our audience today. So Rachael, while they're filling that out, how long have you been in PPC?
I am coming up on my 3.5-year anniversary. I came to Hannafin as a fresh college graduate, PPC baby. Didn't know anything about PPC, but here we are today.
Perfect. Yeah, Rachael went through our training program and has progressed quite a lot and is now a Senior Account Analyst. So very cool. All right, so who is in our audience? All right, it looks like our biggest group are the 1 to 3 years at 35%, but a lot of people at different levels throughout the board. That's awesome. So we're excited to have you guys on today and excited to get started. So Rachael, you want to take it away?
All right, here we go. So we will get the ball rolling here with just some common Excel errors. So if you're looking at this slide and you feel your blood pressure starting to rise a little bit, I can totally relate. We all hate it when we see these errors pop up in our Excel formula. It can be very frustrating, especially when we're working on, a big complicated formula. But don't worry, we're here to help. So that first one at the top is the name error. So that's where Excel doesn't recognize text that you've put in a formula. So what you want to do to fix this is just make sure you're typing your formulas correctly. Typos have a sneaky way of getting into your formulas, and that will more often than not give you an error. And it's also important to make sure that any text that you're typing in your formula is enclosed in quotation marks so that Excel will recognize it as text. And moving along, the value error is when you've put the wrong type of argument into your formula. So for example, if you're using a formula that needs to reference numbers and you've accidentally included a cell that has text in it, you'll get this value error. So the fix here is to use functions instead of operators. This can help a lot. So instead of saying cell C5 plus B5, use the sum formula. That can help a lot with these value errors. And then, as always, check that you're referencing the correct cells. So the middle error, divide by 0. Oh no, this isn't possible, but don't worry. The universe will not explode. Your laptop will not burn up. It's fine. You'll just get an error. I see this one a lot when people are calculating rates, like click-through rate, conversion rate, and you have zeros in there. So the fix here is to insert the if error function before that formula. So the if error function is really great. Super simple way to clean up your data, make it look really nice as well. All you do is just shove it in the beginning of your formula, and then after your formula, type in what you want it to return when there is an error. And the reference error. So a cell that the formula is referring to is not valid. This happens a lot if you've got a bunch of columns, you type in a formula, and then, whoops, you deleted a column that formula was referencing. Once you delete that column, Excel doesn't really know what to do, so it gives you this reference error. So after you delete that column, just go ahead and readjust your formula. All will be well. And then the very last one here is just the NA, not applicable error. So this is just where your formula did not find a matching value, and this is not always a bad thing. So if you use VLOOKUPs a lot, you'll find that this is kind of the normal response when it doesn't find a matching value. So this is a red flag, however, if all of your VLOOKUPs return NA, that probably means you have a problem with your formula. So you'll want to go back, and we'll get into VLOOKUPs here in a minute. But that's a red flag that you'll want to change your VLOOKUP. But most of the time, NA is not terrible. Don't panic. So moving on to the VLOOKUP. So here's just a quick snapshot of what this formula looks like. Very popular function in PPC. We use it all the time here in-house. So the common errors here, I have these red arrows pointing to the table array and the column index number arguments within the formula. So with table array, you want to make sure that you're selecting the entire table of data that you're using for your lookup. A big error I see a lot is people only selecting one column for the table array, and that's going to give you an error. So just make sure you're selecting all of your data. And then for column index number, this is the column number that contains the value that you want your VLOOKUP to return. So another error here is using 1. In Excel, if you put a 1 here, and for example, you've selected only one column in your table array, it's going to give you an error because VLOOKUP is looking for a wide range of columns to look at. So here is a quick example. So you notice here we're using the VLOOKUP formula to return the number of ads for these campaigns. And we're looking up from the table to the right, so that box in red. So what's the issue here? Well, remember we said that we want to select the entire array that we're looking for. And we only have one column selected. So columns E and F should be selected here. So we want to return that number of ads, but we don't have it selected in our formula, so Excel can't return that value. So if you do get an error in one of your cells, Excel is here to help. So you will notice this somewhat alarming, scary yellow-orange triangle here pop up. So if you're really stuck, you can click that and either click Help on this error, Trace error, Ignore error. And this is an example of the trace error. So depending on how complicated your formula is and what kind of formula it is, this may or may not be helpful, but it will draw a little diagram showing you which cells that formula is referencing. So this might be helpful if you think you're pulling in the wrong columns, the wrong cells. Go ahead and click that trace error and see if you've got any red flags here. Again, if your formula is super complicated, this might be more confusing rather than helpful, but it might be worth looking into. And if you do click the help with error button, Excel will open a little pop-up that gives you some information for the type of error. You can link to Microsoft's help site if you get really stuck. That's a good option, rather than just trying to redo your formula a million times. I've been there. It's not very fun, but it happens. So the next topic here that we use a lot in PPC, everyone loves them for good reason, pivot tables. They are awesome. However, and I see this pretty frequently in people who are newer to PPC, newer to Excel, just not used to it. So you would think that if you're pulling, say, data from a campaign report and you have click-through rate as a column, so you might think, oh, I can just take an average of the click-through rate and that'll be good. Wrong. Sorry to say it, but you'll have to use a calculated field. But it's not too tricky. You just go in, add that calculated field, divide your clicks and impressions, and you'll notice here that the two numbers are quite different, especially for that top row there. The average of the averages is about 12%, while the actual value is 8%. So you'll just want to make sure you use that calculated field to get the most accurate data. Index match. So index match is a really, really great alternative to VLOOKUP. There are lots of benefits. It's faster. It doesn't look at as many columns. If you've got a lot of data, you'll probably want to use index match because VLOOKUP can be a little clunky with huge data sets. While it is very useful, it's pretty easy to get things mixed up. So we'll go through the functions here. So index returns a value when you specify a row number and a column number. So your array is the cells where Excel should be looking. And then row and column number are just, again, the number of the row and the number of the column. Match, on the other hand, returns a row number for the value you specify. So you tell Excel, hey, I want to look up this value. Tell me what row number it's in. So very similarly, the lookup value is what you're searching for. The array is where you're searching. And then this match type function, it is optional, but I do see a lot of problems with this sometimes when you are looking up values. So here at Hannafin, something we like to do for our clients for bidding specifically, so we will set up a bid table using metrics like impression share, conversions, or CPL, and we use an index match to automatically look up, based on those two metrics, what the bid change should be. So for your match type, if you leave it out altogether or put 1, it will find the value that's less than or equal to the lookup value. Well, if you put -1, it will look up the value that is greater than or equal to. So this can be important, say, you know, if you're looking up a bid and you don't want to overbid or underbid. So you'll just want to pay attention to what match type you're using and use the one that makes the most sense for your particular use case. And then 0 will find the value that is exactly equal to. So if you're looking up text, that's a great one to use. So putting it together, here's our index, which is our leading formula here. We're going to nest the match in the index. So match just takes the place of the row number argument within the index function. And another mistake I see a lot is people just getting these sort of flip-flopped and trying to put the match in the column number. Order matters here, so just remember that for index it's always row before column. And then if you're using a more complicated index match with more than one criteria, this is a great way to do it. So you'll notice this one looks a little bit different. Within our match function, you're actually looking up the value 1. And then if you look here, what we are matching that one to is actually two different arguments multiplied together. So here we want to look for a cell that matches the utilization and a cell that matches the new account capacity. This example was pulled from an internal document we use to do account assignments for account managers here. So when Excel finds a match for both of these criteria within the array, it will return a 1. So that's why when we use the match, we specify 1 instead of specifying a more specific utilization account capacity. These take some practice, but totally worth it once you get the hang of it. Cell references. This one is a bit more uncommon, but it still sometimes happens, and when it does, it can be very frustrating trying to figure out why your numbers don't add up or why they're not accurate. So here we see that this COUNTIF function is referencing a cell that is way below it down there. Why is that happening? That should not be happening. It should reference the one directly to the left. So whoops, the data was filtered. You'll notice we have the filters in the column headers, but the formula didn't quite get the memo, unfortunately. So the fix here is just to use named ranges. So named ranges, if you ever talk to me about Excel, I always advocate using them. They come in handy in so many different ways. But this is one of those use cases where it can definitely pay off to have them set up. So here, instead of referencing the actual cell, we have named the range for all the campaign names. So in our formula, we just type in campaign, and Excel knows where to look in that column. And Excel will not get as confused when you use these name ranges. Filter your heart out. Excel will love you. So for our key takeaways here, we'll keep it short and sweet. Use those named ranges whenever possible. They will make your life 1000% easier. Also, when you're sharing your workbooks with your coworkers, clients, colleagues, it's much easier to understand what those formulas are doing when you're using named ranges. So use them. 2, double check your arguments and their order. Whenever I get errors in Excel, my first step is to go back and double check the formula. Am I referencing the right things? Do I have the order right? I can't tell you how many times I've messed up the order and had to redo it. 3, use Excel help if you do get errors and you're stuck, don't know quite what to do. Excel's there to help you. If that doesn't help, you can always Google. Google's great for finding answers to pretty much anything. And then for pivot tables, again, make sure you're using those calculated fields. Your numbers will not be correct if you don't, for things like click-through rate, conversion rate. So use them, because I don't want you to have wrong data. That would make me very sad. So do it. And that wraps it up.
Rachel, which one do you see happen the most frequently?
Oh, VLOOKUP errors. Very frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But luckily, that's a pretty easy one to fix. Just takes some practice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the great presentation, Rachel. Before we go on to live Q&A, we got a couple of things we're going to tell you about. So if you have questions, go ahead, put those in there, and we will answer as many as we can. So this is just a little bit of about our conference, HeroConf, which is going to be in Los Angeles. HeroConf is the largest all PPC conference in the world. So that's paid search, paid social, programmatic, display, mobile, etc. There's a lot of great speakers and an all-around very fun event, which I think Rachel can attest to, and me as well. So check that out. If you've never heard of it, go to the site, heroconf.com, click the LA. We also have one in London every year as well. We just wrapped that up this past October. We'll be back in London in 2017. So check that out. All right, we have a quick offer for you guys. Here at Hannafin, we know that working with an agency, any agency, can be a really scary thing. when you work with one, there's certain things that you need to keep an eye on. So we put together a list of signs that will help you determine whether your agency is throwing out any red flags. A red flag that we often see here at Hannafin in potential client conversations is that the business doesn't have access to their Google AdWords account or their Bing Ads account or any other AdWords accounts. That's a big red flag. And if you don't have account access, you need to talk to your agency.
Guys, run for the hills if you don't have access to your own account. You should absolutely have access.
So, as an agency and knowing and seeing these signs and hearing some of these other kind of not so great stories about what's happened to other clients, we just want to make sure that everybody is aware that you know what to look out for. So if you'd like that, we'll send you a free copy via email. Go ahead and check that. Yes, I'd like a copy. If not, just click no thanks. Totally cool. All right. We'll keep that up for just a tidbit, and we'll go on to the live Q&A. So let's see what questions we have here from our audience.
Let's see. So we have one for, do we have to use calculated fields also for average position? So for average position, I usually just take the average of this one. So when you're building your pivot table, you'll drag the average position into your pivot and then just change it from sum to average, and that'll give you a nice average.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. Google Sheets versus Excel Sheets has a query function. Is there a comparable Excel function?
So I've been using Google Sheets a lot lately. Specifically, I don't know if you guys have heard of Supermetrics, but it's a pretty easy way to pull data automatically into Google Sheets. I don't think I have used the query function, but I will say that there definitely are gaps between Google Sheets and Excel. Excel is definitely much more robust than Google Sheets in some instances, and you might run into some weird things trying to pull from Google Sheets into Excel. So that's another thing to just watch out for when you're using both.
Perfect. All right. It looks like that's all the questions that we have for today. So thank you everybody for attending this session. We do have 2 more sessions coming up today. The next one will be on search query reports with Elena Thompson. But if that's all you're joining us for today, thank you. We're so glad you attended. If you're sticking with us, we're going to take a short break and switch our presenters, and we will be back at 1:30. Okay?
There's great content coming up, so I hope everyone sticks around.
Yeah.
You won't want to miss Elena and Jacob Fairclough, which
yeah.
we call him Secret Jake, if that adds to the mystique of the webinar. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.